Basic principle regarding textual reading. The author of the book titled The Grand Scheme of God in the Light of Quran states, in any piece of writing, the author gives information in two ways. Some of the information is in the form of explicit statements, that is, clear statements, and a lot of additional information is given in an implicit manner which the reader infers. The basic principle is that information derived implicitly cannot negate or contradict explicit information or explicit statements. That is, the foundation should always be based on the explicit statements of the author, and the additional implicit information given by the author should be understood in the light of the explicit statements. In other words, the foundation cannot be based on implicit information, which negates or contradicts the explicit statements of the author. Now let's try to understand the difference between explicit and implicit information a little further. Explicit information is any information stated clearly and in detail, leaving no room for doubt. In other words, if you can point to it in words of the author, it is explicit information. In simple words, you need to show the words of the author. Now, what is the implicit information? If you can use explicit information from the text of the author to support your inference, you have identified implicit information. Now let us look at some of the verses from the Holy Quran to understand what explicit means. The first verses are from chapter 7, Surah Al-Araf, verses 24 and 25. First Arabic. قَالَ اهْبِطُوا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌّ وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَىٰ حِينٍ قَالَ فِيهَا تَحْيَوْنَ وَفِيهَا تَمُوتُونَ وَمِنْهَا تُخْرَجُونَ. Translation. The Lord told them to leave the garden as each other's enemies and go to earth to dwell and benefit from the means therein for an appointed time. He told them that on earth they would live, die, and be resurrected. The second verse is from chapter 20, verse 55. First Arabic. منها خلقناكم وفيها نعيدكم ومنها نخرجكم تارة أخرى. Translation. We have created you from the earth, to which we will return you and will bring you back to life again. The next verses are from chapter 71, verses 17 and 18, First Arabic. وَاللَّهُ أَنْبَتَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ نَبَاتًا ثُمَّ يُعِيدُكُم فِيهَا وَيُخْرِجُكُم إِخْرَاجًا. Translation. God made you grow from the earth. He will make you return to it and then take you out of it again. It is very clear from these explicit verses that the land or earth from which we will be resurrected with new bodies will be the same land on which we are now living. Please note that God has used these words very explicitly, which can be shown to anyone. Let us look at another example of explicit verses. The Holy Quran explicitly states in verses 101 to 103 of Surah Al-Anbiya, which is chapter 21 of Quran, that the believers will be kept away from hell and will not even hear its sound. First Arabic. إن الذين سبقت لهم منا الحسنى أولئك عنها مبعدون لا يسمعون حسيسها وهم فيما اشتهت أنفسهم خالدون لا يحزنهم الفزع الأكبر وتتلقاهم الملائكة هذا يومكم الذي كنتم توعدون. Translation. Indeed, those who have been promised a good fate by us shall be kept away from hell. They shall not even listen to its sound and shall forever remain in the bliss they desire. That great commotion of that day shall not afflict them with grief, and the angels will welcome them. They will say, "This is that day of yours which you are being promised of." However, from the implicit information given in Surah Maryam, verse 71, most scholars have drawn the opposite conclusion. While pointing out this fact, Maulana Amin Ehsan Islahi writes under Surah Maryam, verse 71 in Tadabbur al-Quran. First, the verse in Arabic, وَإِن مِّنكُمْ إِلَّا وَارِدُهَا كَانَ عَلَى رَبِّكَ حَتْمًا مَقْضِيًّا. Translation. It is the inevitable decree of your Lord that every one of you will be taken to hell. Maulana Amin Ehsan Islahi, while explaining this verse, writes, the word hatam means to be incumbent. The address here is to the idolaters, which are under discussion since the previous verses. Earlier, they were referred to indirectly. Here, they are directly addressed. Both these styles have their own benefits. Just as indirect mention signifies ignoring someone, direct address signifies great anger. There are several examples of a shift in address from indirect to direct in the Quran and classical Arabic literature. An example is verse 89 of this very surah. In the verse under discussion too, a similar shift in address has taken place. Since the purpose is to express immense anger for these wrongdoers, God will directly address them and order them to enter hell without any exception, for the time to present excuses and pleas has expired. At the same time, the Prophet, peace be upon him, is told that this matter is certain to take place. It has been made incumbent by God on himself. The Prophet, peace be upon him, will observe the fate of his enemies from his very eyes. This interpretation of the verse is extremely evident. However, our exegetes have regarded this verse to address all mankind. Thus, they regard everyone, whether pious or wrongdoer, to pass through hell. The only compensation for the former would be that they would be able to pass over the bridge that is also known as Pul Sirat, which will be erected between the two ends of hell. The latter, however, will fall in the pit of hell. This misconception has arisen by not understanding the style adopted here. In fact, most erroneous interpretations are the result of such misunderstandings. It is strange that they could not recollect the following verse of the Quran while making such a grave statement that the righteous too would pass through hell. These verses are from chapter 21, verses 101 to 103. Translation. Indeed, those who have been promised a good fate by us shall be kept away from it, that is hell. They shall not even listen to its sound and shall forever remain in the bliss they desire. That great commotion of that day shall not afflict them with grief, and the angels will welcome them. They will say, "This is that day of yours which you are being promised of. Please note that it is very evident from the verses of Surah Al-Anbiya, that is chapter 21, verses 101 to 103, which explicitly state that the believers will be kept away from hell. They will not even hear its sound. But most of the scholars are denying the explicit statements of the Quran with the implicit information given in Surah Maryam, verse 71. You will find many more such examples among scholars, because they are perhaps not aware of the basic principle of textual reading, that is, explicit versus implicit. Now, before I close, one more example. This is from chapter 3 of Quran, verse 59. First, Arabic. Inna masala Isa indallahi kamasali Adam khalaqahu min turabin summa qala lahu kun fayakun. Translation. Surely the likeness of Isa is with Allah as the likeness of Adam. He created him from dust, then said to him, "Be," and he was. Isn't it evident from this verse that just as Hazrat Isa alayhi salam did not have a worldly father, in the same way Adam alayhi salam did not have a worldly father, that is, his creation was directly from clay. It may be noted that this verse is also clearly negating or rejecting the theory of evolution. I hope the difference between explicit and implicit information is clear now. Thank you.